This is a story that I found on LinkedIn, again, via Tim Heller, who is the weather consultant, one of my colleagues in the business. And this was a story posted on LinkedIn, a link to it. For bolstering local news, weather remains the most powerful tool. Important concept as we're talking about this during this class of meteorology, media, and extreme weather. Weather is the most powerful tool for broadcasters, and in the media is still the one thing that kind of distinguishes itself from regular news because it's always happening, always has an impact on people. Subcaption here now, or how a station handles weather and the caliber and connectedness of weathercasters to local markets are critical to a successful news reinvention. And yes, news stations are reinventing themselves because viewers are turning away from local news on TV. They're now looking at their apps and all kinds of other sources for information. I'll read through a little bit of this with you, and I'm going to post as a story as well. But basically, what this author, Sean McLaughlin, he was formerly with one of the broadcast groups as one of their key digital players, but he is writing this article now. It was always a secret sauce of rating success. How many times I woke up on a key day in the old sweeps world with one thought in my mind: please let there be weather. And the sweeps world is when there were ratings periods where people would be tracked on what they're watching on TV. And in any case, those sweeps periods now kind of extend 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, because they're all done electronically. But news directors and people in the news management business always wanted weather to be a lead story because, you know, it was something that drew viewers. And Sean writes here, severe weather, great. Not so much for meteorologists, but great for ratings, right? But simply, the mere presence of inconvenient weather would often be enough to juice the numbers of ratings, okay? And that has been a philosophy in the business for a long, long time. I'm sure there were even a few times we tried to make the most of a passing rain shower when people wanted weather information. There was really only one place to go: your local TV newscast. Hang on, I'm tearing up. Those were the good old times. Yeah, that doesn't happen so much anymore. And just kind of ignore all of these ads that are showing in the feed here as well. Any event, he goes on to say, fast forward to today, and everyone has a virtual meteorologist in his or her pocket. Isn't that true? And we talk about this in this class. Weather information is available to us all day long and from a variety of somewhat reliable tech-driven sources available on your phone or even smartwatch. Local stations no longer can hold a first look at the weekend forecast over your head to get you to watch a few minutes more. So true on that. Despite this, local meteorologists actually held up pretty well from a value standpoint in the eyes of the news consumer. Any research project that features a local content inventory comes back with weather still as the top of the list. Important to know that, especially in light of this class, what we're talking about, how meteorology and media and extreme weather all interact. Local meteorologists also tend to be the breakthrough talent in local landscape that has seen the number of newscast superstars shrink dramatically in recent years. I'm not sure about that statement. Why is this? There's more than can be done with this dynamic to reconnect local news brands to younger audiences. And again, I don't think it's through TV. I think it's through the weather apps and different modes of watching, not local TV news, in my opinion. As to why, certainly relatability and connection to play the big roles. Weather talent tends to rely heavily on personality to bring their weather segments to life. That's kind of a sad fact of the business, but true. And then there is expertise in the topic everyone cares about. How do you not come into like the people who walk you step by step through how to plan your morning or weekend? The ones who have the deepest audience connection and most value to the consumer have a great ability to navigate the big three of weather: personality, weather expertise, and best command of the weather tools. That's important, all right? Expertise, in my opinion, is number one, all right? Personality, I think, is bottom of the list, but that's what draws viewers, right? And then command of the weather tools, very important too. Graphics, forecast tools, all of that. Those are the tools that help bring real-time information to us when it matters most. Many top meteorologists can trace their station back to a strong performance during major weather events. Again, that is true as well. All right. Here's the challenge and the opportunity with weather as it relates to fixing local news. And he's talking about how local news is in trouble, and it is. And so how do they fix it? The content is commoditized, but the presentation and approach can differentiate. In other words, you can have the same content, but how you present and approach it will differentiate a TV station or a media supplier. The mere fact that there is a forecast in your linear product, which is TV, isn't enough anymore. Areas to focus attention center on both the people who present the weather and the way the segments are produced. Let's start with the easy one. If weather continues to be a top contender priority, we need to reflect that and how news managers treat it throughout the day. Most stations leave the content to the weather person, and there's no real discussion about it outside of how much time do I get to do the weather. Occasionally, a meteorologist will give a few headlines in an editorial meeting, but that's often as far as the discussion goes. And I'll talk more about the process of forecasting from a broadcast meteorology perspective in a separate video. But what if weather, how it's produced and how it's executed across platforms, becomes a central part of the daily editorial process? Maybe even go so far as an all-platform weather producer or executive producer. The segments would be better, the aggregate audience opportunity maximized. One key change in the weather in recent years, the need to produce the weather segments with realization that people know the general idea of the forecast, having checked their phone throughout the day. But how often do you look at your phone and see an image for tomorrow showing a little bit of sun and cloud and a lightning bolt? How do you plan your day around that? Weather is an area where nuance is critical, both in terms of timing and geography. Local weathercasters have the opportunity to own this. Weather segments need to directly connect to what people are doing and major events happening in the community. This is another area where the localism cannot be reinforced enough. Too many weathercasters are generic data dumps, or weathercasts are generic data dumps and a skeleton rundown and not customized to what's happening and the things people are doing, where weather plays a major role. Meteorologists' deep experience or expertise can be used a lot more on the reporting front, as well as many stations have smartly elevated coverage of climate change and made their weathercasters the faces of it. As for the weathercasters themselves, like my thoughts on anchors, deep local roots mean more than they ever have, actually. Mispronouncing a town name is the fastest way to flash the, quote, outsider card that can cost credibility. Finding ways to let weather talent demonstrate their authentic personalities and local connections continue to be important elements. Another thing to consider is going back to the days, I don't say that often, of having your weather people prominent in the field. The studio isn't cool anymore or relatable for non-active weather days. Weather segments live from major community events, presence at local schools, and the old backyard weather idea all help establish your weather talent as uniquely local and invested in the local communities. Showing them interacting with everyday people is ultimately what makes them personify your brand. The hard thing for local weathercasters is to have the ability to yuck it up with the Joneses at a Friday family barbecue, then navigate live coverage of tornadoes on the ground with credibility the next day. But the ability to authentically do both is critical. How your weather talent handle big weather coverage will always be important. Good planning and practice should play into this. If your station doesn't rehearse major weather coverage on occasion, have extensive post-coverage audits after major events, you're missing a key opportunity to get better and improve. All right. It continues on. These audits should include digital and social media performance, not just live TV. Good weather coverage should be built around clarity and timeliness of key information, active choreography between your chief and other Mets and field crews. Being big matters more than ever on major weather days. So does being good. Those things don't just happen. They are the result of good systems, planning, and post-coverage follow-ups. But TV isn't nearly enough. Your weather talent should be a key connection with the younger audiences if they are to be more creative and connect younger people with your weather brand. This won't happen on TV or Facebook or Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube are the key places you have an opportunity. This won't happen on TV or Facebook, period. Let me continue. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are key places you have an opportunity to turn your more digitally savvy weather talent loose. Make it the 6 p.m. weather segment on TikTok obviously isn't the answer. This should be an area of creativity, experimentation, but not goofiness. Young people care about the weather too. They just don't want to come to our legacy platforms and look for it, and they likely never will. The bottom line here is at a time when tough budget decisions rule, Weather is an area of protection and investment for local stations. Your weather talent are more important than they've ever been, but like everything else, it's time to refresh things to ensure the products match up with the modern day viewer needs. Weather should be treated as a key strategic priority in your station, not just something that happens without serious conversation. All right, really good stuff there. I'll discuss more in a separate video.